I am Dr. Jose Alvino Ventura NMD, and welcome to my channel, Medical Perspective on Defensive Tactics. This channel deals with defensive tactics, so I thought it would be natural that one of my first videos would be explaining what defensive tactics are. So let's get to it. First off, it is important that several terms be defined for clarification, as they oftentimes are confused with one another. These terms are unarmed combat, hand-to-hand combat, martial arts, self-defense, and defensive tactics. Unarmed combat. Unarmed combat encompasses all forms of empty-handed fighting without any type of weapon except for the combatant's body. Examples are punching, kicking, joint locks, neck restraints, ground pins, etc. Hand-to-hand combat. Hand-to-hand combat is an eclectic and integrated form of combat. Hand-to-hand combat may occur between two or more individuals in an unarmed or armed engagement using empty hands or handheld weapons such as knives, sticks, or projectile weapons that are not fired. The goal of hand-to-hand combat is to capture, severely injure, or kill an attacker. Projectile weapons that are not fired refers to using, for example, a rifle with no ammunition that has a bayonet installed, similarly to a spear, or without the bayonet installed, similarly to a staff. Martial arts. Traditional martial arts are various skills and practices that developed as a form of combat and have existed for thousands of years in one form or another in all human societies throughout the world. The most popular and widely known traditional martial arts are Asian in origin and include the likes of karate. The oldest record of a martial art can be seen in the ancient Egyptian murals located inside the tomb of Bakwit III, also known as tomb number 15, from approximately 2055 to 1956 BCE, which depicts two individuals wrestling using many pins, joint locks, and throws familiar to modern wrestlers. Self-defense. Self-defense is a set of skills encompassing awareness, assertiveness, verbal confrontation tactics, safety strategies, and physical and psychological techniques that enable an individual to successfully prevent, escape, resist, and survive a violent assault. Defensive tactics. Defensive tactics in general refers to any system which includes physical restraint techniques, arrest methods, transportation of prisoners, firearm retention and takeaway techniques, and armed and unarmed self-defense developed for law enforcement and security agencies. Hand-to-hand combat, self-defense, and defensive tactics, while similar, also differ in their goals. Hand-to-hand combat's goal is to capture, severely injure, or kill an attacker or attackers. Self-defense's goal is to prevent, escape, resist, and survive a violent assault. Defensive tactics' goal is to avoid an attack, deal with an attack, control, restrain, and arrest a subject or subjects. As can be seen, the goals of defensive tactics for law enforcement and security officers are a mixture of both the goals of hand-to-hand combat and self-defense, with the major difference that killing is not one of those goals, and instead the major goal is to capture a subject. Now let's look a little bit closer at the difference between martial arts and defensive tactics. Many traditional martial arts have fixed sets of techniques and have components not applicable to combat, and may take many years to master. If sparring is part of the martial art, it is bound by rules. Similarly, combat sports such as mixed martial arts, boxing, and wrestling are also bound by rules and regulations, and matches generally occur between only two individuals. While defensive tactics draws some techniques from traditional martial arts and combat sports, they are not bound by rules and regulations. Instead, they are bound in the United States by federal, state, and local laws, as well as specific agency use of force policies. Defensive tactic systems are designed to be easy to learn and use, as well as require a short amount of training time while minimizing the injury to both the agent and the subject or subjects. Unfortunately, this is not always possible, and deadly force, which may cause severe injury or death to a subject or subjects, is to be used as a last resort. Furthermore, defensive tactics are periodically updated and revised in order to meet the needs of an agency as well as changes in the law. Now that we know what defensive tactics are, we can look at the types of defensive tactics. The three broad categories of defensive tactics are unarmed, restraint devices, and less than lethal intermediate weapons. Unarmed defensive tactics include control tactics, such as escort holds, soft techniques, such as joint locks, pressure points, takedowns, and weapon disarms. Hard techniques, these are your kicks and your strikes. Ground techniques, these are ground pins, ground escapes, and locks. Weapon retention, these are techniques which are used to maintain control of a firearm or other weapon so that the subject does not take it away from the law enforcement officer or security officer. The arrest techniques, these are standing, kneeling, and prone. Now, the other type of defensive tactic are restraint devices. These include the use of handcuffs, leg irons, and other forms of mechanical restraints. Then we move on to less lethal intermediate weapons. These are impact weapons such as the batons, chemical agents such as oleoresin resin capsaicin spray, also known as pepper spray, electroshock weapons. These include the stun gun and the taser. Kinetic energy impact projectiles. These are the rubber bullets and famous beanbag rounds. Less lethal explosive devices. These include things such as flashbangs. Remote restraint devices. These are relatively new. They have been adopted by some law enforcement agencies, but some of them are still in the experimental stage. These include something like the BOLA wrap. Okay, and then, believe it or not, canines. Canines can also be included in the less than lethal intermediate weapons, and the canines are used in the following way. There is a technique called bark and hold, which means that the presence of the canine and barking cause the subject to stop. And when they bite and cause the subject to stop or detain the subject, this is known as bite and hold. There is another type of weapon that I left for last, and that is because the present day it is frowned upon by most agencies, and those are weapons of opportunity, such as using flashlights as batons, in other words, using improvised weapons. And that's all I have for today's video. I hope this presentation was both educational and enjoyable, and please remember to like the video and subscribe to my channel. Until next time.